See a college hockey game today and you are inside wonderful facilities for fans and athletes, be they modern ones like Compton Family Ice Arena or historic such as Yost Ice Arena in Ann Arbor. But in earlier times, arenas were a different story.
I think for hockey players, we're not as particular with all the bells and whistles in the rink. We wanted a good sheet of ice. We thought about a building in context of, is the ice good? That's all that matters.
The ice was certainly good at the Winter Sports Building where the University of North Dakota played until 1972. Why?
North Dakota was actually an outdoor rink with a shell around it, sometimes 30 below, and we'd be playing in this shell. We had gloves inside of our gloves because it was so cold, and your feet actually would freeze sometimes.
It was a glorified Quonset hut, and you went in there, and I swear, Doc, it was colder inside that building than it was outside. Most of the players were wearing toques under their helmets. They were freezing. I mean, it was really, and I'm from Saskatchewan, I could handle all that, but it was memorable to play at North Dakota.
Until Kohl Center was built in 1998, the Wisconsin Badgers played at the off-campus Dane County Coliseum, memorable for its boards, benches, band, and beer.
It was like the old Chicago Stadium. If you hit it, you check someone on the boards, the whole building would shake. Kind of get shot off of the boards when you ran into them, so they had great flex into the board. So lots of those big hits even looked bigger because the glass would go all the way back. The benches were two different layers, so you had a layer in front that some players that were going on the ice next were on, and then the guys that were 2 or 3 shifts away from being on the ice were in the row in the back.
And the band was right along the glass. The trombones would come right out over the top of the glass. You'd be so tempted to go down with your stick and just go bang, 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 all the way down the trombones.
And it was off campus, and Wisconsin students supported that building and that program like no other. And then I realized why years later. It was a glorified beer garden. They were just about giving beer away. And the students were lined up, and the games got crazier as the game went on. Guess why?
Williams Arena, University of Minnesota. Still the basketball home of the Golden Gophers, but until 1993, the hockey team played there too. Known for its long stair steps up to the ice, similar to another long-ago barn, Chicago Stadium.
When you got in your locker room, it was like you were in a dungeon down below the ice surface, not as far as Chicago, but definitely below. But when you came out to the rink, it was the biggest rink in college hockey at the time. It sat about 8,000 people.
If players at Minnesota had steps to walk up, at Michigan State, they had to walk a lot further to games at Old Demonstration Hall.
We shared Jennifer Field House with the basketball players. If you can picture it, we had lockers on each side and then a bench down the middle, and that's where we dressed. And once we dressed, we grabbed our skates, and then we walked across to Dem Hall to play hockey. It was, I'd say, a block. At Dem Hall, there was no facilities because they used that for actually ROTC back then.
Emotional games, a lot of open space between buildings, ill will.
Minnesota came into town, and there was a little scuffle after the game. One of our players got in it with their player, and after the game, when he took a shower, he came out, and they were waiting for him, so that happened back then.
The Spartans-Wolverines clashes brought a recollection from a Dem Hall visiting player.
You had to pay the price to win a game in there. It seemed like they had half their football team leaning over the boards, swinging at the players. Like I said, there's no glass. I think they had a chicken wire at both ends, but along the sides, you were fair game for the fans. But back in the day, it was common.
Dem Hall is still used for ROTC, though Munn Arena, the Spartans' home since 1974, recently underwent a 3-year multi-million-dollar makeover. And Michigan legend Red Berenson is credited for preserving and enhancing Yost Arena for the Wolverines. Yet, where he himself played, the Michigan Coliseum was more primitive.
I think it was built as an outdoor rink to begin with. And then they put a roof on it and covered it in, and eventually they put artificial ice in it. It was an old building, and it might have been fairly new then, but it was old to us. They never had a Zamboni in those days. There was no glass. I mean, the people were literally sitting 2 feet away from the boards and all the action. the sticks and the flying pucks and so on. The games often had to stop because someone had to be taken out for a cut with a stick.
To bring the appropriate perspective, a former Fighting Irish player and coach who experienced both the old and new.
Thinking back to the college buildings, and they've obviously gone to another extreme, Compton Family Center being one of them, Engelstad Arena in North Dakota, which I've had a chance to get to many times. But if you still give me some of the field houses like at RPI and some of the great college buildings that do exist, Cornell certainly, you know, the job Mike Schaefer has done there with that building, the Hobie Baker building in Princeton, one of the classics. You know, you hope that the idea of what Red Berenson did, we can refurbish an old building and still have the character and the memories that you do in the old building. I hope that's not lost.
Before Compton, before its forerunner Joyce Center, once the Fighting Irish played outside on St. Mary's Lake. It is recalled that about 100 years ago, in a game on the lake with Michigan State, one of the Spartans suffered an injury. Tending to the injured visitor was an Irish fan who was there to watch some of his college football players skate for the Irish hockey team, Newt Rockney.
Fight, 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 fight!
As Dave Poulin said, all part of the character and memories of college hockey that shouldn't be lost.